Hey nerds. So, when you're just innocently scrolling through BookTube or Bookstagram, just kind of looking at reviews, and then you see it. You see that review that fills you with rage. It's someone giving a 1-star review to your favorite book. It's someone trashing your favorite author. And it's unfair and it's wrong. And I've probably done it to you on this channel, I'm so sorry. But someone must pay. So you get ready, you warm up your hands, and you're about to go off on this person on your keyboard, and I'm gonna stop you right there. Hold on, don't do it yet. Today we're going to talk about how to rationally discuss books even when people trash your favorites and say totally unfair and wrong opinions. We're going to talk about logical fallacies. We're going to talk about how to make BookTube in general a more fun and rational place to discuss books. And that's what we all want, right? See you after the jump. Okay, so being on BookTube for a little more than a year now, I have had my fair share of book arguments. And I've quickly noticed over the last year and a bit which arguments are fun and productive and exciting, and which ones just dissolve into bitter arguments that aren't really fun for anybody. So without further ado, I'm going to present to you my list of ways to make book arguments more productive. Number 1, remember your end goal. Why are you getting into this argument? What's your purpose for writing this comment? There's a great book I read a long time ago as a part of my work called Crucial Conversations. Now, Crucial Conversations is a book about how to have high-stake conversations, and I'm not necessarily claiming book arguments are high-stake conversations, but they did say something that I think is very relevant. Their thing that they say all the time is remember your end goal. Always remember what you are trying to accomplish. If your goal is to change someone's mind about a book or a character or an author, your tone and argument is going to be very different than if your end goal is just to make someone mad or to make yourself feel better. If your end goal is to just make someone angry, I can't help you. That's not really what this is about. But my guess is in general, when we start defending our favorites, our end goal is to change someone's mind. So why do we lose sight of that so much? To give a concrete example, there were a ton of different types of comments on my Dresden video, and many clearly had the goal of trying to convince me to read a few other books in the series and not judge it just on Stormfront. But the tonal difference between some of these arguments were so vastly different. Some were very successful and some were not. And you could really tell who was just angry and wanted to get back at me versus who really wanted to convince me to read the other book. So before you start angry typing, first try to figure out your end goal. You may realize you don't even have one. Number 2, don't insult people. You guys probably could have called this one, and maybe it's asking too much for people on the internet not to insult people. But I'll never really understand in a book argument why that's your go-to, and there's 3 reasons for that. 1, it's just plain rude. 2, it kind of shows that you don't actually have any valued arguments against the person discussing the book because all you're doing is insulting them. And 3, it's more of a reflection on you than the original poster. For some practical examples, let's use my Dresden video, which is the video that I've gotten the most hate and insults on. Some examples were like, you're a I thought that you were cute, but this video proves you're ugly. You wouldn't know a good book if it hit you in the face. It kind of showed me that they didn't actually have arguments against what I presented in the video because they had to reduce it to insults. And the problem with that is there's nothing to respond to that has to do with the book. Like, the only response I could make to that is like, I don't think I'm an idiot. And honestly, has insulting somebody ever worked to change their mind? Like, if you love Dresden and you want me to love Dresden, what is insulting me gonna do to change that fact? It kind of goes back to point 1, like, what is your goal in writing this? Number 3, don't get off topic. What are you actually trying to argue? What were the arguments actually presented in the video or post that you were looking at? Make sure you're arguing actually on point and the topic that's being discussed. The most common example of this, grammar corrections. So many times on the internet, I see people say, I can't listen to anything you say because you use the wrong form of your. First of all, when you're online in particular, you don't know if you're speaking to someone where English is their first language. And second of all, every single one of us has made a typo on the internet. Usually when you're having some sort of war on book Twitter or Bookstagram or wherever it is, you're typing pretty fast. And whether it's autocorrect or you're just not paying attention, everyone has made a typo. It is dumb to immediately assume that because someone makes a typo, they're dumb. It's just, can we just move on from that? Yes, if you see one of those text posts where literally every word is grammatically incorrect, I get it, those are a little different. But someone spells one word wrong, like it has nothing to do with the actual book argument. Don't devalue their arguments over something so petty. There are also two relevant logical fallacies that I often see under this topic that I think are very relevant, which are the straw man and the red herring. A straw man argument is when someone tries to attack a different argument than you actually made, and more often a more extreme argument that they made. So they take what you said and twist it to be kind of something else and then attack that. The other one is a red herring, which uses an argument to intentionally shift or divert direction from the real argument to a different side argument to distract from the real thing being discussed. A great example of a red herring actually comes from the same person who made two comments on my Witcher video. The first thing they said is, most women died in the Middle Ages. And the second thing they followed up with is, your own movement supports prostitution. Now, unfortunately, there isn't a fallacy called wild generalizations about people you don't know. Like claiming I support prostitution is a very bizarre thing to get from the Witcher video of all videos. But both of these prove the red herring argument. Nothing about my video was talking about how hard women had it in the Middle Ages. Nothing. It was talking about objectification of women in writing. But by trying to direct the argument to how terrible women's lives were, like they died in childbirth, it's trying to divert the conversation from what I'm actually saying. Same with you support prostitution. It's trying to divert the argument from the main point of the video, which he clearly didn't have any arguments against. Number 4. Actually listen to what they're saying. This feels obvious, but surprisingly seems to be that it isn't on YouTube. All I'm asking is you actually listen to the person who is making the argument before you argue back. For example, someone left a comment on my Dresden video claiming something about sexism that I said, and I responded like, hey, that's not what I said at all. And he responded by apologizing and say, I actually didn't watch your video. I just commented on the assumption of what your Witcher video was about. First,
if you could assume that Dresden was sexist, then maybe there actually was something to it if you didn't have to watch the video.
But second, and more importantly, I could not believe the gall of somebody coming after me without having even watched a second of the video. Now, I'm not gonna post the actual comment. I don't wanna come after this person because they apologize, which I feel like is really big on the internet. So like, really, that's a big thing, power to them. But it reminded me that probably a lot of people who angrily comment on videos don't actually even listen to the argument that's being presented. So first and foremost, before you go get mad at someone on the internet about a book opinion, actually hear what they have to say. And if you're not willing to listen, then I don't think that you should write an angry, mean comment. Number 5, know when to walk away. Some people are simply not gonna wanna have a productive conversation with you, and you don't deserve to get insulted or have people purposely misunderstand you. The point of a book conversation is that both arguers can enjoy it. And if they're not showing you the same respect you're showing them, then you don't owe them anything to stick around in the conversation. If people are really respecting you and respecting your argument, dissenting opinions can be really fun. I think of the video I did on Best Served Cold, where the literal point of the video is that we all disagreed on our feelings on the book. And it was so fun, it was so productive, because we all went in with the attitude that we weren't better than anyone else and we sincerely wanted to discuss it. So if someone's not gonna show you that same respect, then what's the point of getting worked up over it? Arguably, this is the one I'm personally the worst at. I always feel like when I read a super nasty comment that I could just change their mind if I'm just only nice enough. And it works about like 5% of the time, and the other 95% of the time it just leaves me feeling really crappy. And so I finally realized, like, what's the point? I don't need to give people the time of day if they're really not trying to, argue in good faith. So if you watch a rant video that's clearly just meant to trash something and they have no interest in actually engaging in a discussion, I say it's not worth it. Okay, let's look at some practical examples. I have 2 comments that I really love to put against each other. One was from my Witcher video and one was from my Dresden video. Both comments are attempting to convince me to continue with the series because they do not think the book I read was representative, but the way they went about it was completely different. Let's see if you can spot which one was effective and which one was not, and why. So the first one says, "Oh honey, Dresden is nothing like Sherlock. You only read the first book. You hadn't even been introduced to many of the main characters. Definitely not following you, lol." And the second one is, "Quite honestly, it's really hard to judge the books based off just one. In my opinion, the real story doesn't even start until Blood and Elves. The first 2 books are just set up with world building. I think it's best to view them as one complete work. I know that means reading 8 long books, but it's really worth it in my opinion." Can you see the giant difference in tone there? The first one I read is incredibly condescending, is meant to be insulting, and they think they're gonna injure me by not following. Okay. The second one about The Witcher is a statement of his opinion, a statement of fact. Very reasonable. He's disagreeing with me and giving me advice on what to do. Which one do you think worked on me? Which one you think made me want to read more stories? And what's interesting that you'll notice again, like I said, between good and bad arguments is bad arguments generally have you defending yourself, while good arguments have you defending the work or defending your opinion. Other great negative comments I got on The Witcher. As a side, I only consider hate comments to be comments that are rude or insulting. Any comment that disagrees with me is not a hate comment. There are great disagreement comments, and I'm gonna show a couple that I think make the point really well. I won't read the whole thing, but I'll put them up on screen. The second comment says, I feel like this review completely ignores the context of the book. I didn't realize the level of sexism that was present. However, I feel like you overstate the level present. The world is painted in a way that shows that women don't have agency, and those that do are made up of all the more exceptional for it. For example, and then he goes on and talks about his interpretation of it not being sexist. I love both those comments. They both go hard for what they believe, especially the second comment. He really does not agree with my opinion, but you notice he keeps it straight to the book. He's actually discussing my arguments, and we had a very good discussion about this. We went back and forth, and it never had to devolve to insults because ultimately we were talking about a book. And I always appreciate those comments. I always appreciate very thoughtful comments to counter arguments because I don't expect everyone to agree with me. But there's a way to do it that's productive. Okay, I'm also gonna do some arguments that I made up for fun to show really examples between good and bad. And you guys can tell me what you think if I did a good job. And to do this, I'm going to use negative Sanderson opinions because I feel like that way you won't think I'm attacking anyone because you guys know I love Sanderson. So here are two examples of real commentary I've heard about Sanderson's books and a good way to respond and a bad way to respond. The first argument is some things at the end of the Final Empire seem convenient and I don't quite understand everything and I did not like that. A bad response to this would be, wow, are you kidding me? Clearly you know nothing about Sanderson because all of his stuff has vast payoffs and it's like clearly you have zero attention span or reading comprehension. People are just so lazy today and won't even finish a trilogy anymore. If you just read the entire trilogy, then maybe you'd actually understand things. Clearly Sanderson is too smart for you. The other comment, I know it's annoying to say this, but some things in the Final Empire really are setups for the rest of the series. It has a great ending in my opinion, where every single question is answered. I'd really suggest keeping reading. Okay, again, see the clear difference there? On one, you insult the reader and the only way they're gonna respond is to defend themselves. And it also expects them to know a lot about Sanderson, that he's big into big payoffs at the end. It is my personal opinion that no one has to do any research on an author when they pick up a book. So again, you're kind of expecting too much. Whereas the good argument states just fact, doesn't insult or make assumptions about the reader. So that would be an example of insulting. The next one I'm gonna do an example of a red herring. So let's do this argument, which is safe hands are dumb and don't make sense. A bad argument would be, clearly your political views are getting in the way. I'm so tired of feminists making everything in a book about them. Safe hands have nothing to do with your liberal agenda. You clearly don't understand the metaphor. Not surprised you're single, to be honest. The other comment is, I interpreted safe hands to be a commentary on the arbitrary nature of modesty requirements in certain cultures and religions and how it always targets women. I find it very successful and don't understand what you don't like about it. Okay, what's the difference? In the first one, the poster is trying to divert the conversation from the real argument to be about politics and how your personal politics, which they completely assumed based on the I don't like safe hands comment, and then of course there's an insult at the end because these kind of comments always have an insult. Whereas the second one still comes hard for their opinion. They say, I don't understand like why you didn't like that. But again, it's only arguing the book. It is not making a value or moral judgment on the poster. And while we're on the topic of Sanderson, a quick word to Sanderson fans. I've been hearing a lot on the internet about how terrible you guys are to people who don't like Stormlight or Mistborn. Would you knock it off? I am a huge Sanderson fan, and I do not like that you are giving Sanderson fans, or the fandom at large, a bad name by attacking people. I have heard from several trustworthy sources that when people criticize Sanderson, people come after them hard and insult them. We as a fandom are better than that. Knock it off. I will not accept it. Here's a good example. Did you know that my husband tried to read my favorite book of 2020, and I thought one of my top 10 favorite books of all time, and he stopped a third of the way through because he thought it was boring. He DNF'd one of my favorite books of all time because he thought it was boring. Guess what? We're fine because it's a book, okay? I get it. We have really strong opinions about books that we love, and I love to be that way too. But ultimately, it's just not a big deal. And I know that we love our books, and I get super defensive over my favorites as well. But ultimately, we just have to remember that we can have normal, nice, good discussions without resulting to insulting people or going on a witch hunt. Okay, the point of this video was to just have better book discussions on the internet and on YouTube and really be able to enjoy our discussions and enjoy people's dissenting opinions. Now, I realize making the internet a positive place completely is a pipe dream. It is kind of funny because my original idea for Bookborn like 4 or 5 years ago was a book blog. It's a long story. And my idea was having this really pleasant place for everyone to discuss books and have dissenting opinions, but be positive, and because we all like it. And for the most part, like the people who are subscribed to me, you guys are awesome and really do make me think and challenge my ideas. And I really love that. And I just wish there was a little bit more of it on the internet. I do want to do a quick note on the YouTube algorithm because I think it's very interesting. YouTube does not differentiate between positive and negative interactions. Thus, disliking a video tells YouTube the same thing as liking a video. And when you comment, they do not know if it's a negative or positive comment. So if you find a video that you hate and you dislike it and then leave a negative comment, you are telling YouTube that this video gets engagement. You are telling YouTube that they should forward this video to more people, probably leading them to more subscribers and earning more money or whatever it is. So the ironic thing about YouTube doing that is that there is a win-win situation here. If you see a video you don't like, don't engage with it, because the less you engage with it, it's another drop in the bucket of hurting the algorithm and not showing it to anyone. On the other side, the creator doesn't have to see a nasty comment or see a bunch of dislikes. It is win-win. You're harming the creator without making them sad. Win-win for everybody. Okay. Let me know in the comments below. Do you agree with anything I've said? Is there a particular point that I made that you particularly struggle with, like I struggle with walking away? Are you someone who likes to insult people and leave? And what do you get out of that? Let me know. What's a comment or opinion that fired you up the most, and how did you respond to it? What did you post? How did you react? Let me know in the comments below. I am very interested. And as always, if you like these kind of videos, please like and subscribe. That is the best way to support me. And if you want to see what I'm currently reading, nerdy rants, or just talk to me, the best way to do that is to find me on Instagram at bookborn.reviews. I'll see you next time. Bye.